So, what exactly is the mind? I mean, really, think about it. Is it some kind of non physical soul, like a ghost driving your body around? Or is it just, the incredibly complex storm of electrical signals firing inside your skull? Philosophers have been wrestling with this for centuries, and in this explainer, we're going to trace the fascinating back and forth of that very debate. Okay, let's just dive right into the deep end by asking the question directly. Are you more than your body? Seriously, take a second. Your thoughts, your feelings, that inner sense of self. Is all of that just complicated biology at work? Or is there something else going on? Something non-physical that truly makes you, you? This right here is the heart of the whole mind-body problem. So to really get into this, our story has to start way back in the 17th century with the philosopher René Descartes. See, Descartes wanted to build all of human knowledge on a foundation of absolute, unshakable certainty. And to do that, he realized he had to start by doubting literally everything he possibly could. I mean, he really went for it. He imagined that some kind of evil demon was systematically deceiving him about everything. The world he saw, his own hands, even the basic laws of math. He decided to pretend it was all just a grand illusion. His whole goal was to find just one single thing, one belief that was absolutely impossible to doubt. And then he found it. Descartes realized that even if an evil demon was tricking him, the very act of him doubting his own existence proved that he existed. A thought, after all, requires a thinker. This was his rock-solid foundation. I think, therefore I am. So starting from that one single point of certainty, Descartes built out his whole theory. He concluded that he was, at his very core, a thinking thing, a mind. And this mind, he argued, was completely and totally different from his body. You can see it here. The mind is non-physical, it's private. The body, on the other hand, is a physical object, out there in the world, public and divisible. For Descartes, these are two totally separate substances. And this is the famous idea of Cartesian dualism. But this right here immediately creates a massive problem. If the mind is non-physical, if it's not made of, well, anything, how in the world can it interact with a physical body? How does a mental decision, just a thought, cause your very physical arm to reach out and grab something? This puzzle, the interaction problem, became the theory's great Achilles heel. All right, let's fast forward a few hundred years to the 20th century, because this is where the story takes a huge turn. The philosopher Gilbert Ryle launched this powerful attack on Descartes, arguing that the whole problem was based on a fundamental confusion. Ryle didn't pull any punches. He famously mocked Cartesian dualism, calling it the dogma of the ghost in the machine. He said Descartes was picturing a person as this mysterious ghost, somehow operating a physical machine. But for Ryle, this wasn't just a wrong idea. It was a deep, logical error. Ryle called this a category mistake. Now, that's just a fancy way of saying you're treating something as one kind of thing when it's actually a completely different kind of thing. For example, imagine watching a baseball game and saying, okay, I see the pitcher, I see the catcher, I see the fielders, but where is the team spirit? You see, team spirit isn't another player on the field. It's about how all the players work together. Ryle says Descartes made that exact same kind of mistake with the mind. And he gave this brilliant analogy to make it crystal clear. Imagine a visitor comes to a huge university like Oxford, and you give them the grand tour. You show them all the different parts, the beautiful colleges, the ancient libraries, the science labs, the whole shebang. And after seeing all of this, the visitor turns to you and asks, okay, this is all great, but where is the university? The mistake is obvious, right? The university isn't some extra building you forgot to show them. It's the organization of all those parts. And for Ryle, the mind isn't a ghost in the machine. It's the intelligent way the machine, our body, behaves. So by kicking the ghost out of the machine, Ryle's critique really opened the door for a much more scientific, materialistic view. If the mind isn't a spooky ghost, then, well, maybe it's just the brain. This idea is known as identity theory. And the core claim, put forward by philosophers like J.J. Smart, is incredibly direct. It's that mental states are brain states, full stop. The sensation of pain isn't just caused by a process in your brain, it is that brain process. There's no extra mental stuff. They are one and the same thing. To get your head around this, identity theorists use a classic example. For centuries, people looked up and saw a morning star and an evening star, and they, quite reasonably, thought they were two different things. But then science came along and discovered, nope, they are both the planet Venus. It's one thing, just with two different descriptions depending on when you happen to see it. The theory argues the exact same thing is true for the mind. Pain is one description of an experience, and C fibers firing is just a more scientific description of the very same event. But, of course, it's never that simple in philosophy. Identity theory ran into its own problem. It just seemed too specific, maybe even a little bit biologically chauvinistic. And this led to the next major move in the game: functionalism. The philosopher Hilary Putnam posed a really critical question. If pain is identical to a specific human brain process, does that mean an octopus with its completely different brain structure can't feel pain? What about a sophisticated alien from another galaxy or a future AI? Do they have to have our exact biology to have a mind? This is the huge problem of multiple realizability, and functionalism is the proposed solution. It says we should think of the mind as being like software, and the brain is just the hardware it happens to run on. What matters isn't what a mental state is made of, but what it does, its function. So pain is anything that plays the pain role. It's caused by bodily damage, and it causes you to try and avoid that damage. It could be realized in our carbon-based neurons, in silicon chips, or who knows what else. But even this super clever functionalist view seems to leave something crucial out. You know, all these physicalist theories, they're great at explaining the functions of the mind, what it does, but they all seem to struggle with one thing: consciousness itself, the raw feeling of what it's like to experience something. Philosophers have a name for this: qualia. It's the subjective quality of an experience, the actual redness you see in a sunset, the piercing sharpness of a pain, the rich taste of chocolate. It's the what it's like aspect of being conscious. And explaining that, well, that's known as the hard problem. The philosopher Frank Jackson came up with this famous thought experiment to really drive this point home. Imagine Mary, a brilliant neuroscientist who has spent her entire life in a totally black and white room. But from books and computers, she learns every single physical fact there is to know about color vision. She knows the physics of light waves, the neurobiology of the eye and brain, everything. Then one day, she's released from the room and sees a ripe red tomato for the very first time. So here's the million-dollar question. Does Mary learn something new? And intuitively, we all want to shout, yes, of course she does. She learns what it's like to see red. But if she learns something new, that must mean her previous knowledge, which included all the physical facts, was incomplete. This seems to suggest there are facts about the world, facts about our experience, that are non-physical. This gets right to the heart of what the philosopher Thomas Nagel was talking about. He argued that consciousness is defined by having a subjective point of view. There is something that it is like to be a bat, or a dog, or you. And an objective, third-person scientific description of the brain, no matter how detailed it gets, seems to completely miss this first-person subjective character of what's it like to be you. And so, after this whole whirlwind tour, from Descartes' ghost to the mind as software, we find ourselves right back at the deepest puzzle of all. We've made so much progress, but the ultimate question is still hanging in the air. Can science, with all of its incredible power, ever truly explain the subjective, private reality of what it actually feels like to be you?